The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. Lovin Baseball when we were 12 and innocent. And I have the good fortune of talking to some of the most interesting people about their childhood memories on the face of the planet. And today is no exception. Frank Gianakos, hope I'm pronouncing that right. Welcome to Comfortably Zoned.
No, it's actually Gianakos, but you were pretty close.
I kept it in the dictionary. How about that? I used most of the letters. A Brooklynite. Welcome. I'm from Queens, as you know, and we're going to talk about age 11. Where were you at age 11, baseball-wise? And let's start with that.
Okay, age 11. That puts me roughly in the 1958 range. And there was a very, very dark moment, as you know, in Brooklyn at that particular time because we lost the Bums. We lost the Dodgers, and they wound up, making their way out west. O'Malley did his thing. And, what I, remember is that what my, one of my aunts and my on my mother's side, basically was, wearing black for the entire year after, they departed. I don't know if you remember for a while there, Channel 13, which is the PBS in New York, wound up trying to broadcast Dodger games for a little bit when they moved out to Los Angeles because, people were going into some heavy withdrawal with them gone. So anyway, do you remember that at all, Ralph?
I don't remember Channel 13, but I remember Les Kiter recreating New York Gent baseball on the radio. And
that's right, on WINS. He was calling the game over a ticker tape or some old technology. And, he was really something. Steve Reich right down Broadway, something
and
like that.
Bang, it's off the wall.
Bang, it's off the wall.
He had a little baseball bat and a sound machine recreating the actual hitting of the ball. Great memories. How did you adjust? Did you remain a National League fan? You mentioned the Braves a little bit, winning it in 57 and 58. What happened with your baseball
came
fan?
back to win, I think. Well, what happened is I remember that when they left, I was really, really having a hard time. And, what I wound up doing was I would tune into the Yankees game because it was the only game in town. And I found myself gradually becoming a big fan of theirs because, what a terrible hardship, huh? To root for a team that has Mantle, Ford, Berra, Bill Skowron, numerous more.
Bobby Richardson, whose son I just had the pleasure of interviewing a week or so ago, Robbie Richardson, and we talked about those Yankee years. The one thing I admire about the Yankees, other than the dynasty of 5 in a row, which was absolutely incredible,
and I don't think we realized how incredible until later years,
Exactly.
But absolutely incredible to basically be able to really effectively create a dynasty with that many world championships in a row. I mean, we know today just how difficult it is to go back to back. I mean, and that to me was absolutely a phenomenon.
It was, and I started to say the Yankee announcing crew of those years with Phil Rizzuto, Red Barber, and Mel Allen were absolutely a delight to listen to. They were ear candy for a baseball fanatic. Who was your favorite among announcers of all time?
For me?
Yeah, who was your favorite?
Scully, without a doubt. Yeah,
okay.
Without a doubt, I think it's Vin Scully. The man's a marvel. I mean, you know, even though I get the subscription, so I'm able to pick up like the Dodger games, and I miss him terribly. You know, he was just absolutely the best and a great storyteller. You know, that's what happens when you get old. You got a long-term memory going, and you remember like things. You know,
and you don't remember where you left. You don't remember where you left your keys, but you remember 55 years ago. So
or why I came into a room. I have a sweatshirt that says I came, I saw, I forgot what I came for. So
yeah. I had a sweatshirt like that, but I forgot where I left it.
Good one. But I wound, just to get back to that, I wound up finding it that the Yankees kept me company, especially since, as you know, like I was, raised in the Midwood section of Brooklyn, and a lot of my friends during the summers wound up either going up to camp upstate, or wound up like going up to the Catskills. So a lot of my friends were gone. So like I really found that emotionally, that being able to turn to the Yankees for baseball, at that time, was like very, very, consoling to me. I was a lonely kid. The summers were like, pretty difficult. And then when the fall came, everybody came back and all was well.
Okay. Well, I was one of those kids that went off to camp every summer, and it was wonderful, but the All-Star game and the Old Timers Day games were never, I never got to see any of those. And
really?
Yeah. So, and I know I missed a lot. I was fortunate a while back to befriend Marty Appel and do several podcasts on Yankee Old Timers Day, which he basically organized. He was the PR guy for the Yankees in those days, and he brought back the players that I so would have wanted to see and hear and watch stumble around, as old guys and just be on the field. So
you had a totally different experience than me. You were at camp and wound up missing those Yankee moments. And meanwhile, I was totally mired in them. Incredible.
I can imagine you would be. Bringing back guys from the 20s. In those days, they were in their 50s and 60s and what have you. And that's my one great regret about going to camp. But on the upside, a wonderful experience of socialization and lifetime friends. And I must say it trumps the experience of All-Star games and Old Timers Day, but not by much. If you know my mindset towards baseball. Who do you root for today?
Well, that's the whole thing. I have this conflictual tension that I should be consulting my therapist about. I'm a New York fan, and I wound up watching both the Yankees and the Mets. In fact, I'm recording both games as we speak. I have a split focus. There are, some of my family members, my relations are Yankee fans, and some are Mets fans. But I really, really did take very favorably to like when the Mets were, joined the National League in 1962. And I wound up going to I think it was 40, about almost half their home games at the Polo Grounds the first year. And so I really missed the National League Baseball because at that time, I mean, the National League was stacked with the all-time greats. I mean, people like Clemente and, Aaron, the Dodger players, like people like Hodges and Snyder, So I basically was, just delighted to be able to go to those games and had a really, really good time.
You must have been thrilled
experience.
You must have been thrilled like I am that Gil Hodges finally got in.
I was delighted. You probably didn't know this, but Gil Jr. went to Midwood High School, and he was a freshman when I was graduating. And Gil Sr. used to go to the games because Gil Jr. was, also on the football team. I played football for Midwood High School for a couple of years. And what happened was Gil Sr. would be in the stands, and, you could approach him for an autograph. He was very, very approachable. He was a wonderful man. He really was. And he lived over on Avenue M and Bedford Avenue in Brooklyn, for a very long time. And, I was really delighted for the family, for Gil Jr. and Joan, that he did in fact get in. My first game was at Ebbets Field, and I sat behind the Dodger dugout. And Gil Hodges was there, and he would occasionally engage folks in a few words during the game. But, obviously not too much because the game was his focus, and always was.
Right. Who is your favorite player of all time?
Oh, gosh, that's a tough one. Because of the Yankees, thing, Mantle was. But Mantle it was really also a frustration because he was injured so much. He had the knees from hell, as you well know, and wound up getting some severe injuries and missed so much time. But he was a heck of a ball player, and followed closely by Willie Mays. And yes, I did engage in the old conversations of who was the best center fielder in New York. Was it Snyder, Mantle, or Mays? So I had a friend, good friend that was a Giants fan.
Mays would have said it's DiMaggio. That
he did. I'm trying to remember.
I think he did because he worshipped DiMaggio like you and I worshipped Willie, and you must have worshipped Snyder, and you must have enjoyed those arguments that were never ending. Frank,
never ending.
Right, and really no real solution to it, and that's the fun part. Let me segue into something. I moved to California through the Air Force at an early age, or an early adult age. You spent pretty much your life in Brooklyn, in New York. How has
actually not?
Oh, okay.
Actually, what happened was in my adult years, after I got married, I moved to Long Island, and then I went to technical school in Phoenix, Arizona for a couple of years. And then I lived in the Bay Area, and I wound up working in high tech in the Silicon Valley. So I lived in the Bay Area for, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I think it's like 14 years, almost. And I've been around, but I'm now back living in the Hamptons on Long Island.
Okay. I'll make my question two-part, Stan, with that in mind. How has New York changed since you were a kid, and what are the basic differences living in California, where I'm blessed to live, and New York? So if you could take it one at a time, how has New York changed? Has it changed and come back? All things go around. What goes around comes around. How are things in New York compared to when you and I were kids?
Oh, it's really like a lot different, especially with what's going on now in our society with the pandemic. And you watch the news and see what's going on out there. But I remember, I was raised on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn, and I lived above a fruit and vegetable market. And what happens is the camaraderie of the neighbors is something that, I think you don't wind up seeing that much anymore. I'm fearful of really generalizing, but this, I'll relate to you my experience. Okay, I mean, yes. I remember when I was a kid on those hot, sultry summer nights, that the neighbors, even into the early hours of the morning, would sit out on their beach chairs and get a chance to talk with each other, and the neighbors always looked out for you. And I remember all the mom pop stores that there were around then, and everyone watched out for the other guys' kids and stuff like that. It was much more to me close knit, and at least within my experience, I don't wind up seeing that to that great extent right now. So I think that it's changed, and it's just it's really much harder to have a camaraderie. I think neighbors aren't as close as they used to be. Things like that. Is that what you're looking for? Or am I taking you somewhere?
Exactly. That's part one. Part two, and that was perfect. Part two is how are things different back east than out in California?
Well, the weather out in California was incredible. You could wind up almost taking for granted, just how nice it was. I mean, it did rain a lot, and then when it did rain, it rained. I mean, I remember when I was living in Fremont that we got 9 to 11 inches of rain, and the tree fell on my house, and all this other stuff. So when there were drought breakers, and what I remember about California are the mudslides, the results of the terrain and the rain falling. So that was really, really different. In New York, it's sort of really, really crazy. We have the seasons, all four, which I like. But, it winds up snowing 20-something inches. I got 22 inches this one day this past winter. And then it warms up. and then like the snow was melted before you noticed, and it always seems to be up and down, you know. Like now it's starting to get warm here, you know, and in California, you know, I don't know, it just seems like it was like, you know, a little bit different. Overall, a lot more mellow.
Yes,
you know,
that's a good way of putting it.
You know, yeah, it's a lot more mellow, and you know, there's more of an intense environment in New York in general. But I mean, of course, I'm being out in the Hamptons. It doesn't compare with you know, like the city as far as intensity, for sure.
No question. What brought you back from out here in California back to New York?
Well, the love of my family, and I you know, missed all my relatives. I miss my sister and my two brothers. I have a half brother that's still around. He's living in New Jersey. Like my other siblings have passed, and I'm, you know, was glad to basically be able to be back here to be with them for the remaining years that they had. And my mother-in-law also was like getting older. My wife's side has a line of longevity that's incredible. You know, I think the youngest one that died among her relations was 90 or something like that. That was the weakest link that he had. My mother-in-law died at 96, but she also began to find out like she was, as she got older, was in need of a hand. And as it turns out, like I was here to basically be able to have them move into our house and be with us. So I would have to say the relations had a very good deal, a very good part in my return to the East Coast, you know. And of course I had memories of what New York used to be. That also was a factor. And but my what I learned was it's not the same, you know. It's different, you know. So
there was a book written, You Can't Go Home Again. I can't think of it. Something like You Can't Go Home Again, or a book in the 50s. Anyway, It sounds like you're well-adjusted. Hey, you're a terrific interview.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm. I don't think I've. Well, I've gone on job interviews, but I haven't been interviewed. But that's a really nice thing to hear. Thank you so much.
I mean, you're articulate. You answered the questions, and you're with it. And I truly enjoyed it. And if you did too, I hope you'll come back.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'd appreciate you inviting me back. This has really been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Just so I could close it out, tell me how your name is really pronounced, not the Ralph way of doing it. Frank
Gianakos.
Gianakos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just think of gin, the booze, knock, and then kiss.
All right. I somehow will resist not having that consume my every thought, but
do your best, Ralph. Do your best.
I'll do my best, and I promise to get it right next time. Thank you, Frank, and thank you everyone.
Very much, Ralph, for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening, everyone. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. It's a kick for me, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Adios and happy trails. The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Happy trails.